What if we told you there's a single book that could serve as a mirror to your soul? A book that doesn't just explain mystical cards, but reveals the deepest patterns of human transformation. After studying tarot for over a decade, I can confidently say that Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees of Wisdom isn't just another tarot guide. It's a roadmap to self-awareness that will fundamentally change how you see yourself and your life's journey. Today, we're diving deep into the opening chapter that explores the three most powerful archetypes in the tarot: the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why these three cards hold the keys to every major life transformation you'll ever experience. But first, let us share something the surrealist artist Leonora Carrington once told filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky. "The tarot is a mirror," she said. "Not a fortune-telling device, not a mystical gimmick, a mirror." And that's exactly what makes 78 Degrees of Wisdom so revolutionary. Pollack doesn't treat these cards as mere divination tools. She reveals them as psychological archetypes that reflect our deepest patterns of growth, struggle, and awakening. That moment of recognition, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes revelatory, is exactly what these three opening cards offer us. But here's what most people miss about these archetypes, and why understanding them could be the difference between living unconsciously and stepping into your true power. Let's start with the Fool, arguably the most misunderstood card in the entire deck. Most people see foolishness as weakness, as something to avoid. But Pollack reveals something profound. The Fool represents the courage to leap into the unknown when everyone around you is screaming, "Be practical." Picture this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Below lies everything you've never tried: a new career, a creative project, a relationship, a spiritual path. Behind you stands society, family, friends, all saying, "Don't be a fool, stay safe, don't risk it." The Fool says, "Jump." But here's what's revolutionary about Pollack's interpretation. The Fool isn't reckless. Look at the traditional imagery. The Fool carries a white rose, symbol of purified passion. They have a bag of experiences, showing they're not abandoning wisdom, just not letting it paralyze them. Most importantly, they carry a magic wand so casually they barely notice it. This is the paradox Pollack illuminates. True power often looks like foolishness to others. When you're following your deepest instincts rather than social expectations, you appear foolish to those trapped in conventional thinking. The Fool appears in mythology as the trickster. Think of Merlin constantly appearing to King Arthur in disguise, testing whether the king can see through illusions. In our modern world, the Fool shows up whenever you feel that inexplicable pull towards something everyone else thinks is crazy. But there's a warning here that Pollack doesn't shy away from. When the Fool energy becomes blocked or distorted, it manifests as either paralysis or recklessness. Some people become so afraid of looking foolish that they never take any meaningful risks. Others throw caution completely to the wind, making destructive choices because they're afraid of doing nothing. The key insight from Pollack: the Fool knows when to leap and when to wait. This isn't about being impulsive. It's about trusting your deepest wisdom, even when it contradicts surface logic. And this brings us to the card that emerges directly from the Fool's leap: the Magician. If the Fool is the leap, the Magician is what happens when you land. Pollack's analysis of the Magician completely transformed our understanding of personal power. Most people think of magicians as manipulators, using tricks and illusions to get what they want. But the true magician, as Pollack reveals, is something far more profound. Look at the card. One hand raised to heaven, one pointing to earth. The magician isn't casting spells. They're serving as a lightning rod, drawing spiritual energy down into physical reality. Here's what changed everything for us. Pollack explains that we function best as channels for energy, not containers for it. Think about the last time you felt truly powerful, truly in the zone. Were you holding on to that energy, trying to preserve it? Or were you allowing it to flow through you into some creative act, some meaningful work? The magician teaches us that real magic happens when we become conduits. The artist doesn't hoard inspiration, they pour it into their work. The teacher doesn't keep knowledge to themselves, they channel it to their students. The healer doesn't store up healing energy, they direct it where it's needed. But here's the crucial insight that separates Pollack's interpretation from superficial manifestation teachings. The magician must be grounded. That hand pointing to earth isn't decoration, it's essential. Without grounding spiritual energy in practical reality, we become overwhelmed, anxious, even delusional. This connects to what Pollack calls the shaman model versus the wizard model. Western traditions often portray magicians as isolated figures making deals with dark forces for personal gain. But Pollack draws on the shamanic tradition, where the magic worker serves the community, using their abilities to heal and teach, rather than manipulate. The shaman develops techniques and knowledge not to control the spirit, but to become a proper channel for it. They want to make sure the power flowing through them doesn't destroy them or make them useless to others. This distinction is crucial for anyone working with their own creative or spiritual energy. Are you trying to control and manipulate outcomes, or are you learning to align with larger forces and direct them constructively? And when the magician's energy becomes blocked, the results can be devastating. Pollack doesn't sugarcoat this. When the magician's energy is disrupted, it can manifest as depression, that awful feeling of being disconnected from any source of power or inspiration. Or it can swing the other way into manipulation, using personal magnetism to control others. Most dangerously, it can create what Pollack calls mental disquiet, anxiety, hallucinations, the feeling of energy trapped in the body with nowhere to go. Anyone who's experienced severe anxiety knows it's intensely physical, like lightning with no ground wire. The solution isn't to suppress the energy, but to find healthy ways to channel it into reality. Which brings us to our third archetype, the one that holds perhaps the deepest mysteries. If the fool is the leap, and the magician is directed action, the high priestess represents the profound power of receptivity and inner knowing. But Pollack's interpretation goes far deeper than the typical feminine intuition stereotype. The high priestess sits before two pillars, Boaz and Jachin from Solomon's temple, representing the duality that runs through all existence. Between them hangs a veil, and most people assume we're forbidden to pass beyond it. But Pollack reveals something remarkable. We simply don't know how to enter. Look closely at the imagery. Behind the veil isn't some elaborate temple or complex symbols. It's water. Still, deep water representing the unconscious mind. The secrets aren't hidden from us by some external authority. They're hidden by our own inability to dive beneath the surface of consciousness. The high priestess holds a scroll marked Torah. Notice the spelling. It's an anagram for tarot, suggesting that the deepest teachings of spiritual wisdom and the tarot are intimately connected. But the scroll is rolled up, partly concealed. This knowledge exists, but it remains inaccessible to our ordinary consciousness. Here's what Pollack helped us understand. The high priestess doesn't represent passive weakness. She represents the profound strength that comes from stillness, from allowing the deeper mind to speak. In our action-obsessed culture, we've forgotten that some of the most important work happens in quiet reflection. But there's a crucial warning in this card that Pollack doesn't let us ignore. The danger of the high priestess is seduction by withdrawal. Some people, especially those beginning spiritual work, prefer to stay at the visionary level rather than do the hard work of integrating insights into daily life. Pollack uses the myth of Actaeon, who saw the goddess Diana naked and was transformed into a stag, then torn apart by his own hunting dogs. The message, glimpsing the mysteries isn't enough. If you don't know how to integrate what you've seen, it can destroy you. The person who tries to live in pure passivity becomes depressed, trapped in cycles of apathy and fear. The temple remains empty if we can't pass through the veil. But the solution isn't to abandon the mysteries. It's to learn how to bring them into conscious awareness. This is why these three cards form the perfect opening to the major arcana. The Fool gives us courage to begin. The Magician teaches us to channel our power. The High Priestess reminds us that true wisdom comes from within, but must be brought into manifestation. Pollack shows us that these aren't just pretty pictures or fortune-telling devices. They're maps of human consciousness, mirrors showing us exactly where we are in our development and what we need to embrace next. Throughout the rest of her book, Pollack continues this psychological and spiritual analysis, revealing how each card represents a stage in the soul's journey toward integration and awakening. If you've never read 78 Degrees of Wisdom, we can't recommend it strongly enough. It's not just about tarot, it's about understanding the archetypal patterns that shape every human life. Which of these three archetypes resonates most strongly with you right now? Are you in a full moment, ready to leap into something new? Are you learning to channel your magician energy more effectively? Or are you being called to develop your high priestess wisdom through stillness and inner listening? Let me know in the comments below. And if this video helped you see these cards, and yourself, in a new way, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the books and ideas that can genuinely transform your understanding of yourself and your path. Remember what Leonora Carrington said, "The tarot is a mirror, and sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply look honestly at what it reflects back to us."